started. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. You can hear me okay?
Yeah.
I can also speak quite louder, but I figure it's early. Try not to yell at you all too much. So myself, Holly Patnode with Stratus Technologies. I've been with the organization for 12 years now, going on 12 years. I'm the regional sales manager for the Northeast. Jeremy Taylor.
I've been with Stratus for 6 months now, but I've been selling Stratus as a partner for 3 years, and opportunity to come over here. So, yeah, I like the technology, I like everything about it, so we'll show you a little bit about that here.
Yep. And we also have on our team Michael Donald. He kind of handles all things services. And then we have a new hire, Julie Gordon, who's at the booth today. And she's kind of helping us all administrative event type of stuff and just kind of making her way within the team. So first question, outside of Scott, because I know, who knows anything about Stratus? Okay, well, that's good. Yeah. Well, sometimes folks will come just to hear what's changed, what's different, right? So we'll talk a little bit about, who we are. So we've been in business for over 42 years. Our marketing team does a great job of having some folks not even know who we are, right? But we started out really heavy in finance, right? If you think of, because what Stratus prides itself on is simple, easy to manage and install, fault tolerant, high available systems. So folks that have some requirement for their applications to be up and running all the time. So back in the day, stock exchanges, credit card transactions, all of that was, kind of our bread and butter, if you will. Over the years, we realized there was a shift, and specifically in industrial automation. When the IA space started to adopt virtualization, that then, in our opinion, strengthened their requirements for things to stay up all the time. And then we started to notice a trend of most folks are being asked to do more with less. So whether that be IT is not supporting as much as they were before, or you want something to manage yourself and not become dependent or relying solely on IT, that's where Stratus started playing in the IA space. In the past 7 to 10 years, it's our number one sector. It's the number one we invest our marketing dollars in that space, and we've done really well. We have over 12,000 systems out in production currently today. What I think Stratus has done a good job is listening to the market, listening to the customers, and where we started with our enterprise class FT server, then adding on our newer product, the ZTC Edge. And we'll talk about both of those so that we have the ability, if you have, let's say, you're supporting a life sciences account, and so they require a lot of cores, a lot of power, we can do that with the FT server. If you're working in a plant looking to run a couple VMs, but you need something that's simple and easy, we have that solution for you as well. So again, whether you're large or small, you have a solution. So why customers typically choose Stratus, right? So it's, as I said, easy to manage solution, provides continuous availability from data center all the way to the edge. We are the only out-of-the-box fault-tolerant solution, meaning there's not this real heavy infrastructure requirement like you might have with, say, a cluster. You don't need specialized IT skills. It's simple to manage, it's simple to install. You hear that theme come through a lot. One thing I think is very unique about Stratus and our approach is we behave in a proactive manner. We're all about proactively addressing a situation should there be a failure to go in, ensuring that your fault tolerance or high availability is not interrupted during that process. In most cases, we find folks are a bit more reactive in those situations and in those manners. The services we wrap around our products, I think, are unmatched. That's one thing for me as a sales rep I've always enjoyed. When I work a new territory or talk to an existing customer, 99% of the time when I ask, what do you love about Stratus? What are we doing well? It's service. Hands down, they always talk about our services. And for me, that's good, right? That's what we want. We provide, 5 nines, we really get to 6 nines. That's what I think comes to less than 30 seconds of unplanned downtime a year. So again, if you think of applications that have to be up, this is where you go.
And again, the theme, whenever we talk about Stratus, we like to think of these 3 terms: simple, protected, and autonomous. It's simple to use, simple to manage, protected and hardened and secured. You'll see that in the different slides. And then the autonomous portion is everything inside of it does itself. So if you have IT involved and you have to start moving things, backing up and things like that, there's a lot of labor intensiveness to it. Our software takes care of that, so it's all autonomous of that high availability and autonomous.
Also, I should have mentioned earlier, beginning, we tend to be a bit casual. So if you have questions, feedback, interrupt us, please. We understand when we're standing up here, presenting to you, I call it talking at you all, we're not learning anything. So if you're like, hey, this kind of sounds on point, I can see, a use case or whatever, but I'm struggling with this or that, or hey, this seems completely off. Let's have that chat, because that's helpful to us.
Well, I want to mention one of the things that as a customer,
Yes.
We went with a fully fault tolerant solution, even though we didn't really need it. It was one of those, we had the ability to do that at a reasonable cost, and it was easy to maintain. So we went ahead and did it, because then I avoid headaches, longer, down the road. So we sort of spent a little bit of money now, a little bit more, and it really wasn't all that much to get that and not have to worry about it. Because we started down the path of just one server, we're going to virtualized solution, looking at the single server design, and the thoughts all come through. Okay, when that server fails, what happens to that? You start going through all those options. At the wrong, it's never going to be Tuesday at noon, right? It's always going to be
After hours.
And so I started looking at it going, to do this now and to have that invested, because asking for the money later wasn't going to happen.
Right.
So we put, we kind of went that route and said, you know what, I want to go fully fault tolerant. I want it to be high availability, fault tolerant, everything, so that I don't have a problem. And it tells me when there's I get told when there's an issue, and I don't have to worry about it.
Right.
That was for me the bigger, because certainly our application was not a critical, had to have that level of uptime. It was just more of the maintenance for me, the upkeep for us in our department, was the advantage of the Open solution.
Yeah.
And so that's, you were saying, if you have a highly critical application, then absolutely for that, but we're running our, our first pair of servers we have is our HMI servers.
Right.
We can afford to live, we don't even run 24/7. But we have that. We have some stuff that we're starting to monitor that bug, but we're not that critical.
Yeah.
But it did fit our solution. It was a good solution.
Well, and it allows you to not have to babysit it, and I think that was one of the things for you.
Right.
Because you have
Right.
a bunch of other things that you need to do, right? So, yeah, thank you for that. Appreciate that. So this is just a depiction of, in our opinion, where some customers might fall, right? I think years ago, most were running just a standalone server. I'll be very candid. If you tell me you have a Dell, and if it goes down, you're down for 4 hours, and you're happy as can be, I'm good with that. Probably Stratus is not the fit for you. Okay? Now we get into folks that want some high availability or fault tolerance. Typically, they're going to try to do one or two things. They're going to try to implement a cluster. You're going to require specialized IT skills. This is a fail and recovery. This is not a failure prevention. Right? So when something happens with the cluster, there is this amount of time it takes for the systems to know, and during that period, transactions are not processing, and some in-flight can be lost. Some other folks will say, okay, we're a little more modern, so we're going to grab 2 HPs and we're going to use VMware's HA product. We support VMware. We think VMware is a great product. Again, this here is a failure recovery. This is not a failure prevention. You're going to need IT because you're going to have to double up on everything. You're gonna have to sometimes have switches, maybe some external storage as well. This is not an easy out-of-the-box solution. When we start to think about cost too, you have to think with the cluster and the VMware HA, you're gonna have to license both those servers. If you're looking at the Stratus FT server, you license it as one single server. So there's some cost benefits as well. Then you move over to where we play, and that's our FT server and our ZTC Edge. With both of our products, you're gonna have no downtime. Again, it's easy to service, easy to implement, and it's that failure prevention, meaning that when there is an impact, because even though we're a hardware company, we understand there's going to be a disk that fails, something's going to happen. Your transactions are processing without any interruption. Your in-flight data is also being captured. Any questions on this before I? Jeremy, why don't you talk to this one?
So this portfolio that we have, it does scale. Anything from just a couple VMs that you may have that will run in a simplex mode or just as a hardened industrialized style server. As you move to the right, we can start pulling in some of our high availability, which is that we'll talk a little bit about high availability fault tolerance here, but I'll get that straightened out. And then you move to the actual fault tolerant, which is just better protection, better redundancy. And then you can get into the larger capacity of the FT server, which is scalable up to, I think, 45 VMs is what our largest one is holding right at the moment. And there's still room on that system as well. So, I mean, it's scalable from 2 to 3 VMs on the left, all the way up to 45 to or more VMs on the right, plus being in that fault tolerant mode, then if part of that system goes down, you have the other half of the system that will take over and keep on running to keep us at that uptime.
All right, so we'll talk about the FT server first. One quick question, because folks often identify these two things differently, or they think they're the same. High availability versus fault tolerance. Are we all very comfortable what the differences are, or would a quick explanation maybe help? Okay. So, true fault tolerance. This is my very, first grade exercise to easily explain fault tolerance. If you all were looking at me right now, and I were to ask you to close one of your eyes, thank you. I assume you all are still seeing me. Did your brain have to say to your opened eye, hey, keep viewing what I was viewing? It just did it automatically. That's fault tolerance, right? There's nothing that needs to tell the other one, take over, because there is no takeover. Jeremy will do a more in-depth on it, but high availability, there's always going to be some couple seconds, could be a couple minutes depending upon the deployment you've chosen, time to tell, I'll call it a node, this node is normally primary, oops, something happened to me, make secondary now primary. During that period, those transactions are not happening. So that's just kind of a simple version of high availability versus fault tolerance. So our FT server, again, this is our enterprise class server. So you see at the bottom, those are what we call crews, customer replaceable units. So everything that's in one is in the other. It manages just like the x86 server. As we talked about, there's no failover time, there's no data loss, there's operational simplicity, the components are hot swappable, hard drives fail, you pull one out, you put one in, all while your application's running. You're not bringing the server down really for any reason. We put lowest total cost of ownership. And part of the reason for that is, again, I won't shy away from, initially there is a cost to the FT server. It's going to be a bit more if you're looking just at a standalone Dell, or even if you're looking at 2 entry-level Dells. But when you look with, say, 2 Dells, and I got to license it all, and all that, with Stratus I'm going to put 1, and the average life of FT servers out in production running today is 8 to 10 years. So you can get a very long life cycle out of the FT server. Yeah, question?
On that note, though, if individual components fail,
Yep.
replace them
Yep.
in a hot swappable fashion,
Yeah.
that's going to increase
Increase your life cycle? Yeah, so that's partially how we are able to do what we do is, what's different about us is when we have a component fail, we guarantee so long as you have your service contract, we are going to send you identical components. We're not going to send you just compatible. That's, what Dell and HP does. They'll say, we'll send you some compatible components. Now, if you have something that's very heavily regulated, because now the hardware's changed. Now you've got to go through this heavy process. With Stratus, you don't. So I personally have a customer that I didn't upgrade to a new version because he hadn't outsized the system. He didn't need a newer version of the OS. He was running his FT server in production, supporting 5 hospitals for 15 years. And was doing so without any issue. Now, do we recommend? No, we would like you to upgrade a little bit sooner, but you can absolutely do so. So that's where that lowest total cost of ownership comes into is, if you know you can buy this server and you know you can have it in production 10 years easy, how many Dells or HPs may you have to replace in that period of time? Yeah, just a different way to think about it. Okay, so this is the FT server.
DCS vendor will only do 5.
Oh, that's it. Yep.
So they're doing the HPs.
Yep.
And they said basically, and I said, what about computer? He said, no.
Yeah, we have not, to date, we have not retired an FT server from support.
Correct. We have not VOS. We have not end of service. An FT server is in service. Yeah. Yeah. I have one. I don't like to use this example because I think they are stretching it a little too far. But I have another customer that is currently running on a server that is 20 years and 3 months in production. I'm like, all right, at some point, guys, you got to let this is right. All right, so this is Stratus. Green lights tell you everything's working great. Oh no, something happens, right? It's sophisticated enough. It's going to isolate that faulty component. It's going to automatically call home to us, order the correct identical component, and it will be shipped out next business day. Again, you're going to pop out the hard drive. If it's something that's will require you to get under the hood, and kind of open up the chassis of the crew that's more involved, we will then send you an entire crew. So that way you're not having to, do that should that be something you're not comfortable with. So again, this is where you start to think like, maybe there's not IT on presence, maybe it's more of a remote site. Maybe it's the middle of the night and now the janitor is the only person there. You could walk someone through doing that very easily. Questions, comments at this point? Just want to be mindful of our time. All right.
And
This
that
is your
last part, on that last section there, that's that autonomous. So once that crew gets back in, once that hard drive gets plugged back in, the system itself recognizes that, does a system check, and syncs everything back up. So then you're running with the whole 2 halves of your
Fuller duplex, yeah. And a key point, thanks for bringing that up. A key point is oftentimes with a cluster event or cluster environment or utilizing VMware's HA, when there's an impact, often somebody either has to restart some services or rewrite some scripts. Something usually needs some user intervention. But this guy goes away. Yeah, doesn't need it.
Yeah, so this is the spec sheet here. Kind of a little messy, but a lot of information there. It really gets heavy into the specs. The most important rows that I feel are that first row and second row. So if you have kind of that shop floor location, kind of a smaller plant that you're running up to about 10 VMs, the 2910 is perfectly suited for that. We have 2 other levels above that. We have our 4910 and our 6910. The 6910 is the one I was telling you that has the 45 VMs on it. We say 30 and up. We don't really know what the limit truly is. It's basically just based on the resources. We do have sizing sheets for all of the big vendors out there of software. And then you can always size it yourself as well. So in that, you have 72 available vCPUs. So you slice that up, say 4 vCPUs a system. That's a lot of VMs. So, and then it can go up to a terabyte worth of memory. to, I think, last time I did the math, is 19 terabytes of storage. With the 8 different bays that are in there, but we have different storage options as well, so lots of.
So what I'd say on this is, so every server is custom configured and custom built. We don't just stock servers on the shelf and set them up. So this is good reference, and we can get this data to you, and that's great. What our preferred method is, if you think this might be something you're interested in, is invite us into a call. We'll run through the sizing sheet with you. Jeremy's really good at proposing alternate methods of, other ways you may want to consider some storage options, things like that. Talk through with you, really, what is your ideal goal? How long do you want to have the server? Make sure we provision it so there's room to grow, right? The last thing we want to do with any customer is sell them something that satisfies their budget, but in 18 months they've outgrown it. So now they're not all that happy with us. And on the flip side, we don't want to bring up the big gun 6910 when really they could go just fine with 2910, because they're going to realize that at some point and come to us and say, hey, Holly, why did you sell me the 6910? I'm not even utilizing 20% of it. So have those conversations with us, and we'll help you size it properly. So the FG service offerings, again, this is where I think Stratus separates themselves. So we have 3 levels. I always talk about the total assurance and the extended platform service. I rarely go into system. Price difference between system and total is so small. You're either going to go to total, you're going to go to extended platform service. All of our service offerings include your identical next business day components. All of them give you 24/7, 365 service. We understand you run your businesses like that. You need someone at 10 o'clock on a Friday night. Where we start to get a little bit of differences is critical issue on our extended platform service within 2 hours. You'll be on the phone and you'll have somebody respond. Some folks say, oh, well, that's better than what I've been getting with Dell or HP. That's where you sit, and we may continue to talk about extended platform service. Some others will say, hey, I'm buying this, enterprise class, fault tolerant server from Stratus. I want everything Stratus has to offer. I want you all to be my full service as much as possible. That's where you get to total assurance. With critical issues, you're going to get a response in under 30 minutes. Should a field engineer need to come out on site because the issue is not handled remotely, which 99.5% of the time it is, that is included. We also will do root cause determination. Some people say, I don't really care. Some people say, yeah, I want to know. What is that? Why is that important for some? Something happens with the server. Extended platform service, we're going to get you back to that full duplex state. You're off and running, all lights are green, everybody's happy. Total assurance, an engineer is going to triage it all the way back to what caused the problem and deliver that to you. So that if it was a patch or something you had done that you didn't realize wasn't supported, you don't go 3 months or 6 months down the road and do that again. Other thing to mention about total assurance, I think a lot of customers appreciate is that full service offering from Stratus. So what I mean by that is, you have an issue with your Stratus, you call Stratus, and we have heard from some customers when it was their vendor was Dell or HP. And I'm not trying to bash them, they're good at what they do, I'm just giving some differences. They call, say, their Dell vendor. We think it's a hardware, we think it's a VMware issue. Call VMware. I call VMware. And what is, many of us have heard this or been it. What does VMware say? Call Dell. And now you're, yep, right? And even if you're an IT professional, you're like, come on, someone help me. You choose total assurance, you call Stratus. Say, I'm having an issue with the server. Stratus says, we think it might be VMware. We're going to call VMware on your behalf. You're more than happy to stay on the call. But if you have other things to do in your day, go off and do that. We'll take the call with VMware. We'll figure out between the 2 organizations where the issue lies, and we will get it resolved for you. So again, it's just that difference of trying to be as full service as our customers would like us to be. Make sense? Questions? All right, so now we'll talk about the new product, the ZTC Edge. If you haven't been by our booth yet, you may not have realized it was our booth because our booth is still stuck with FedEx, all of our logoing and stuff. But we do have a pair of our previous generation ZTC Edge Node. So if you want to actually pick it up, look at it, see it running, we do have a pair at our booth. So Jeremy, I'll let you, if you want to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so ZTC Edge was built and designed for the industrial environment. So it is a secure, rugged, highly automated computer platform that delivers that reliable edge computing that we need. So again, being that rugged, compact server, 10-year plus life cycle, that's another thing that Stratus very much we pride ourselves in having a long life cycle product. It's got built-in virtualization, which is nice for many customers because then you don't have to figure out how you're going to handle your hypervisor. What method you're going to go is already built in. Very simple to use. All of the wizards and GUIs allow you to do that. Set up your VMs. Typically, a slice VM takes 4 to 5 minutes to set up. And then you just load it and you're off and running. It automatically protects those applications, so we don't have a back. Oh, I guess actually we do have a back page picture there. So the blue and yellow ports there, well, those are our A-links, so that's how the redundancy talks between the two of them. So it's all automatic there. That hypervisor takes care of all of that. They're easy to secure, meaning that you can mount them in pretty much anywhere. Shelf, wall, they have dead rail mounts available, and then also wall mount is available too. They can be managed by IT or OT. It's kind of important because sometimes OT doesn't want IT in their house, and sometimes IT doesn't want to go into the OT's house. So it's very sensible. Like I said, we have a GUI and demo, and you guys are going to see it. And we're going to interact with it. Of course, you can buy, in this generation, you can buy a single node now, so you can get to that ruggedized computing on your machine floor, but then you can pair that with an identical unit later to get you that redundancy. So you have that flexibility to either have redundancy now or wait and do that later when you go from a design phase to an actual production phase. There are no moving parts, so that's very nice. It's all SSD. It's no fans, sealed chassis. So it is built to, as you can see, there are some of those industrial specs. It's built to be in your cabinet, right next to your other industrial controls. It is DC power, so you can run that off of your DC power supplies that are already in your cabinet. But we also do offer an AC to DC power converter that you can add in as well. Flexible mounting options, kind of talk about that. One of the other nice things about our ZTC Edge is that you can do it as a split site installation, which means co-located. Obviously, it's in the same panel, sitting right next to one another. The link cables are right there. Some of our customers like doing the split site where you have one of the units in the cabinet, but then the other unit on the other side of the concrete wall, so whenever that warehouse driver drives a forklift to the panel, you're still running, well, sort of. Your data is still secure. You're not running anymore because there's a fork through the panel, but your data is still secure. And the uptime from your data is much faster. What I mentioned before, you can buy a single unit now, run it as a single node or a simplex, and then add that second node later. Our ZTC Edge 200i, its redundancy layer is that high availability. So where you have a VM running on one, it's being backed up on the other one, and if there's an issue, that first node or that hypervisor says, hey, I have an issue, start up that second VM. In the ZTC Edge 250i, when you add that second node, it can do high availability and or fault tolerance. And so what I mean by that is that you can pick your different VMs. If you have an engineering workstation that, if it takes a couple minutes to power up, it's not the end of the world if something happens, but your HMI that you want to have that control of your machine, you put that in a fault tolerance. So if there is an issue with one of those nodes, it's running the identical information on that other node, and you have no downtime and no data loss.
The only thing I'll add on that is if you're going to start off with a single node, just have some idea of the direction you may want to go should you want to add to a dual, because you have to stay, when you go with the 200, to pair, you have to stay with the 200. Same with the 250 to 250, you can't mix and match. So if you're thinking fault tolerance, even if you're doing a single, buy the 250. If you're thinking just high availability, buy with the 200.
Yep. So this is kind of in picture form, what we were talking about, the high availability versus fault tolerant. So the middle picture over there, the high availability checkpointing, you can see that both the top and the bottom nodes, they're running fine. All of a sudden, at some point, there's a failure. And you see that failure happen, and now you have data that is in transit that might get lost while it's telling that second node to start back up. Yeah, so
I just want to make sure we're going.
so you have your failure right there, and so now the hypervisor says, hey, turn this one on, I have an issue. So it's turning that VM on, it's starting it up, you have that recovery, and now everything's running on that second node while you're trying to figure out what's happening with that first node. So there is, and that can be anywhere from 30 seconds to, let's say, 5 minutes for a very, very, very high-end application to start that VM. In the fault-tolerant mode, you recognize that failure, that hypervisor sees it and says, oh, we have a problem, start running here now. So all of the I.O., all your read-write is happening on the second node only at that point in time while you figure out what's happening on that top node. And once you figure that out, once you replace it, once it gets fixed, the system automatically syncs itself up, and then you're running at the same time on both nodes.
And that's why you see in the high availability gives those brackets, that window of potential, non-processing. With the fault tolerance, they're at the same time.
And this just kind of gives you that picture relationship again, just to kind of go over the HA is that on VM1, you can see that it's loaded here, but it's kind of in a relaxed or a sleep state over here, even though the data is being written over there at the same time. But once something happens here, and this node goes down, the hypervisor says, hey, we've got a problem, start this guy up, it starts it up, and then it takes that time, whatever time frame it takes for that VM to start, then it's going. Whereas in the fault tolerant, this one and this one are on at the same time, they're running at the same time, but there's a token that says, hey, you're, for lack of a better word, primary, and then if something happens to this node, that token just gets handed over here, and now everything's running there, and there is none of that data loss. Does that kind of help explain high availability versus fault tolerant? Okay.
So the high availability is still more redundancy than just starting up the other, that on the other. You still maintain some level of data by having that high availability.
Correct.
Because the one way is just, okay, that, the standard two machine approach is you have two machines, one die, you start the other one out.
Exactly.
Plus that data that, that the old machine had, you don't have that continuity. So you get, even with the high availability,
Still a step
you still
above.
can.
I'll add on to that, because that's a good point. If you have two systems, it's just like, oh, well, I'll just power this other one up. Well, they have two different IP addresses. So if you're taking historical data, you're pushing that to an IP address or to a system. Whereas this is seen as one IP address, one system. Even though each node has its own, but that token is what follows that main IP address or that system IP address. So you point all your data to that IP address, and the hypervisor figures out, hey, I need to throw that information over here. In a running scenario, in a green checkmark world, it's sending it to both at the same time. But when there's an issue, whoever has that token is who's getting that. So.
And you may have said this, but with the ZTC Edge, the virtualization platform is built in.
Yes.
So you're not having to buy a copy of VMware or that's okay. All right, that's all we get today?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to talk through this quickly, or I just want to be mindful?
So yeah, just Yeah, this is just a easy to use slide. That's, I know it's very small, but those 6 little pictures over there, that is our instruction manual of how to start it. So you open the box, you plug in a monitor, a keyboard, power, and network.
Should I tell them the story?
No, okay.
I'll condense it. So when the ZTC Edge product kind of first came out and we were testing the market and people were liking it and we were really promoting how easy this was to do, we all got called to corporate for a team meeting. What they didn't share with us was we were going to walk into a room similar to this and there was going to be 2 ZTC Edge nodes and some monitors and a box, those instructions, and our system engineers, the technical folks, were going to watch us sales reps actually install this to the point where you start loading your VMs. And let's say everybody was successful, so it is easy, but they very much enjoyed us kind of being like, well, let me look at my phone and Google. They're like, oh no, no phones. Do it just by the instructions because we want to see how simple this is. And when you got the sales reps to slow down and listen and really go to the instructions, we all did it successfully. But yeah, it was a fun activity. They still make fun of us for it because of course naturally they did it and not even half the time it took us to stand there and like, but so it is that easy. Yeah.
And then it has the GUI interface that once you have the IP address set on the system itself, you go onto the GUI, which is any web browser.
If we place an order today,
Yes.
with supply chain issues where they are right now, what's the estimated lead time to get one?
For ZTC Edge?
Let's do an FT server 2910.
Oh, 8 weeks.
8 weeks.
Yep, custom, build it, ship it on site within 8 weeks.
And she said that started too.
Yeah, oh yeah. Now, it's unfair for me to share this because this was pre-COVID, but just to give you perspective, prior to COVID, our standard on FT server was 3 weeks. That's how quickly we would custom build and ship and deliver. Since we're talking about ZTC Edge nodes, 200i, we're at 6 weeks. Our 250, we are at 12 weeks. So we've got to plan out a little bit for that. But from what we're hearing from our customers, we are in alignment, if not better, than what they're hearing from others in terms of lead time. And I hate to do, I don't like doing these things, but so far we've not come back to any customer and said, hey, we told you 8 weeks. By the way, it's another 12. We've really been holding to those lead times.
So you're not going to
I didn't say that, you said that.
Here's the most podcast. They tell us it's your date.
Get 8 weeks.
We've been hearing that. Yeah, we've been hearing that. And I'm sick.
I was hearing that 7 months ago. So yeah, because I came from a Rockwell distributor.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel your pain.
You retire, you're trying to get going.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what I'm saying to him. I'm like, how are people getting away with that? Like, our customers would just not tolerate that. But, I mean, everyone's in a position you have no choice, right? So no, our lead time is lead time. And that does change every week. We assess this every week so that we can give accurate lead times for our customers. Because we understand your projects are, contingent on this. Now, on the flip side, it is causing a little strain and pull on us because we're like, oh, hey, when did you want the server? And they're like, oh, well, Rockwell just told us it's going to be another 6 months, so now I don't really need the server right away. And I'm like, well, okay. But most people are saying, you know what, I still want to secure it. I want to make sure I'm good on that. Start really messing around with it. All right, Jeremy, you like this one?
And then, yep, I just put this one in here just because of the picture. It shows those 2 Stratus nodes right there in the panel. Like I said, that's what these units were built for.
Now it can go in a rack, it can go, on a shelf. It has other, options, but that is nice to see that there was intention with this product of, being for right in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, it's happy to sit in an IT closet that's 65 degrees and ventilation, things like that, but it's perfectly content sitting in that 110-degree warehouse right next to that machine that's vibrating like crazy. So, yeah.
data slide.
And then again, another spec sheet here. This is all on our data sheets as well that you can eventually get from us physically here, hopefully today, or we can email it to you. But again, very busy sheet, but the most important thing is just that row 1, the recommended number of VMs. And then also row, where is that? Oh, wait, bottom, available support, whether it's high availability only, or whether it is fault tolerant and high availability. Those are the two kind of sticky points of where do you fall.
The other thing I'll add on this is, again, it is that sealed chassis. So what you see for memory and what you see for storage is what you're going to get.
Inside the box.
Inside. Unlike FT Server, you can start with X amount of storage, and as long as you have the slots in the base, you add some more disks down the road. Same with memory. This guy, that's what you're going to get. So just let's be mindful when sizing it, but you know it's trusted and tried and true. 4 VMs, 7 VMs with no issue. And if you see this and you know just based purely on memory or disk, this isn't big enough, that's what tells you, all right, I got to look at that FT server that they also have. So.
And you're talking about the 257 fault tolerant?
VMs?
No, not 7 fault tolerant. No. Would be more like 7 high availability. If you need all of your VMs fault tolerant, I'd say 4, maybe 5 at max.
What is nice about that during the 250 is you can mix and match. So you might have some applications that are not as critical, so high availability is fine for it. Make those high availability, turn on the fault tolerance for the ones that are really good.
What's the amp draw? It says voltage, but doesn't have amp draw.
I can get that information to you. I don't have that right off the top of my head.
Okay, so yeah, we'll take a note on that. Okay, CTC Edge services, again, similar to FG Server. A couple different options. It's not a one size fits all. It used to be. We said, why are we doing this? Let's give folks options of what they want. So top system support is required for each node. That's going to give you your 8x5 web-based service, your root cause determination, software updates and upgrades, and access to self-reporting. Our customers typically consider 2 of the optional add-ons. One is the 24x7x365 web and phone support. Top service offering, there is no phone support. So if you're the type of person that it's Friday night and it's 10 o'clock and you want a live person, I suggest you consider that. You'll have SLA of less than 30 minutes for critical issues. The other thing some of our customers will consider is the advanced parts exchange. The reason for that is if you don't choose that offering and something happens to your node, you're going to send your node back to Stratus. We're going to triage it, see if we can fix it. We can't, we're going to send you back a node. All that time you're without that node. If you do the advanced parts exchange, then you call us up, let us know something's going on with the node. We send you out a couple business day, your new node, unplug the blue, yellow, couple cables, plug in the new one, ship it back. The third option is some folks will choose to buy a third node. So say if they were going to run a dual 250i, they would buy a third 250i just to keep on their shelf and just as a pure spare. That's another one. We also have proactive uptime monitoring, similar to our FG server, and then media retention. Media retention comes into play if you have something proprietary on it and you can't send the node back to us because there's data that you want handled or destroyed in a certain way. And with that, questions, please. You all have been quiet. Questions, comments, what's good, what's not good?
What did you say earlier about the VMware? He said something about VMware earlier, about licensing.
So a couple different things. So if it's an FT server, the VMware license is, so we typically send out VMware Essentials, which is the free edition that comes with the unit that covers up to 2 hosts. So it covers the entire system. And you don't need to upgrade that because we handle all of the mirroring and the redundancy or that fault tolerancy between the two. Whereas if you get into a system or a system that has two different systems, you have to upgrade that VMware so that you can move those VMs back and forth and you can do other things. On the ZTC Edge side, you don't need VMware because we have a built-in virtualization there at Bank. It does allow for the hosting of Windows and or Linux as the guest OSs. Does that answer your question?
And the guest was, is that server, MS server 2012 or?
On the ZTC Edge, it is Stratus's redundancy layer. Yeah, it's a home-built software application, or software hypervisor, sorry.
Yeah, and on the FT server, you can run bare metal Windows, should you choose to do so. You can run VMware, and you can also run Microsoft Hyper-V, if that's your platform.
And or Red Hat Linux as well, it supports that as well.
Was there another question or comment, Paul, from your side? Yep, so what I would recommend if there's some interest is, who's your rep?
Tom.
Oh, yeah, Tom, yeah. I like Tom.
He smiled. Every time we say his name, he smiles. Because he knows there's so much stuff, so I can't wait to see him.
So that's why he got COVID.
Yeah.
So you have to come here and face everyone. Oh, yeah, all the pieces are coming together. No, we're wishing him well. No, so what we would recommend is let's do a joint call. Us, you all, Tom. Let's go through a sizing sheet. Rockwell software you're running mostly?
Yeah, we're gonna have like 4 VMs running on it.
Okay.
Full load SQL on one.
Okay. Yep, and we'll go through the sizing sheet, talk about, long-term plans for it, and then we'll be able to get